This episode is so inspiring because our guest is flipping land from Ireland. He figured out how to overcome extra obstacles that we in the United States just don't need to do. And a lot of people ask me, how do you flip houses and flip land from overseas? So either way, you're going to be inspired or figure out how to do this internationally if you're tuning in from Europe.
Yeah, and I've always been intimidated by doing any kind of remote wholesaling, and hearing him doing it from a completely different country, not just a couple state lines away, opens up the reality to me, and also is incredibly encouraging that if he can do it from Ireland, there's no reason you can't do it from where you are.
So, my name's Ciaran Sheil. I live here in Cork, Ireland, and I flip land remotely from here. I started the business when I was 19, just ahead of starting college, in kind of August 2019. I was just back from a holiday in New York with my family, and I got set up with doing real estate from here.
That's right. And we met at a conference somewhere. Where was that conference?
So I'm a member of the Collective Genius.
That's right.
I'm in the select group. I joined about a year or so ago, and well, I just renewed my membership. So it's been a year since I joined, and it's been fantastic to meet other high level investors.
Yeah, I'm in select too, but I wasn't at the last two meetings, so I wouldn't have. If you were there, I'm sorry I wouldn't have gotten to see you, but hopefully I'll be in person next time. So land, but you're doing that from Ireland, and I'm intimidated by the land, and I would do it here, but I don't even understand the concept of land. So give me a brief beginner's, like, how do you wholesale land? I don't get it.
So the funny thing about wholesaling is I'm doing my first double close today after having done the business for 5.5, going on 6 years now. It all started with I did a course, and it taught me how to do direct mail marketing to property owners, and we would just buy the property and then resell it. So one of my first deals, I bought a property in Northern California for $3,000, and we sold it to the neighbor for $12,000, and I made $9,000, and I was off to the races from there. So
this is frustrating for me to hear.
Well, like on average, I would say most of the time we double our money on our deals. Like the bigger value deals, you might not double your money on, but
Yep.
a lot of the smaller ones, we can regularly buy a property for $10,000 to $15,000 and sell for $30,000 to $50,000. And a lot of the guys that are scaling with land and doing big volume with land, they're moving up into. There's not as much competition for the smaller deals. That's an easy enough land deal to do when you're starting off. Getting the bigger value deals are a little bit more challenging, but the smaller.
So what kind of land is it that you're buying that's $3,000?
Well, yeah. So I have moved up the range from that property's kind of size, but that property was in Lassen County in Northern California. It's in an area called Ravendale, where there is nothing. It's like a town of like 1,000 people in the desert where there's like nothing. So you can buy properties in the middle of nowhere. But I kind of looked out when I was selling that property that I sold it to the neighbor. The neighbor had like a trucking company, and he had lots of money, and he just bought the property, and he didn't really care. So a bit of strategy with a bit of luck.
Yeah.
In that situation.
Okay, so what would so here's an example, like where I'm from. There's tons of like vacant lots all across town.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point where like our city will just give you a lot, like because there are so many vacant lots. Is that stuff that you're looking for? How do you find the land? I'm so confused by this.
So, what I would say, like now, the business is a little bit more strategic. We're looking to see areas where there's activity, where there's buys and sells, and that there's like a demand for property. Like land tends to be more of a a sales problem than acquisitions problem.
Right.
It's easier to get the deal than it is to dispo the deal. So you want to go to an area where there's demand. So I've bought land in probably 15, 16 different states. And then I've kind of consolidated the business down now to about 5 states now, where we basically areas where we had good results with quick sales and bigger than average deal sizes. We are just doing more in those areas. Um, so like what you can do with the data, and I'm kind of a data nerd. I love all this stuff. So we can like rank all the markets in each state and then pick like the top areas so that we know we can sell. So in that area, if there's like lots of properties where they can't give the properties away, that's probably not an area where you can flip. Not to say it can't happen. You can maybe buy something and then sell on owner financing, but that's a hard. You can make money doing that, but you're then focused on how do you find buyers for those lots, and you're trying
Right.
to sell it. I view the business as making money on the buy side. Like we use realtors to sell the properties and help us with the due diligence, and I just focus on the acquisitions, and that's how we can run like a really lean operation.
Yeah, and that's good. Not having a ton of overhead gives you the ability to just you don't have to have a huge team. You can just do it on your own, which I applaud that. What does a day look like in the acquisition field for you? How are you generating leads? And what is a conversation when you do find an active lead? What does that conversation sound like when you call somebody and you're asking if they want to sell their land? What does that sound like?
So we do a couple of different marketing channels. Like the kind of foundation for the business is direct mail. So direct mail, we're doing about it was like 2,500 to about 3,500 per week is what we've been doing for about the last year. We are very consistent with it. We're hitting the list multiple times a year, and then we're also doing texting. The conversations from different lead channels is a little bit different. Like a direct mail lead they have looked you up online. They might know a little bit about you already. They've thought about selling, and there's a different kind of conversation. The conversation kind of runs like, how long have you been thinking about selling this property? What were your plans when you had the property? Why now to sell? And trying to understand kind of how far are they on with their thoughts with selling. Like sometimes our letters will like plant the idea that they're to sell, and then 6 months down the line they'll end up actually signing a contract, and that's when that like they tend to be our bigger deals, the ones you have to nurture over maybe 3, 4, 10 conversations sometimes. Like one of my best deals last year, we bought a property for like 40,000 and we sold it for 135,000, and that was 8 months of nurturing this seller because she wasn't quite ready when we had the first conversation. The idea was there, but I'm you don't want to push too much if they're not ready to move forward. You kind of need to like understand what they're looking to do and then
Yeah.
support them.
Right. So when you nurture, is it just checking in every couple of weeks or every month saying, hey, let me know if anything changes. Now's a really good time. We could cash you out in 2 weeks. Is it saying those types of messages?
It's something like, hey, David, last time we spoke, you seemed kind of interested in selling, but you're a little bit hesitant. Like, you had the property for such a long time. You want to ask your children about whether they wanted the property, and if and like how did that conversation go? And trying to see, okay, so they're not really interested in buying the property. They weren't too interested. Are you about ready to get this handled, or do you still want to give them some further time? I'm cool either way, but I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand, are you ready to move forward now, or should we check again next spring?
Got it. Thanks. That was really nice of you to explain that.
Yeah.
I always know that people have a rundown house. They get into these situations and they haven't, got the money to fix it up and list it on the retail market. But with vacant land, how come people aren't listing it with an agent?
So like a lot of the time, our solution doesn't work for most people. Like most of the time, like a logical situation is that someone would list the property to a realtor and maximize their money. I say to them, hey, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, one being the fastest sale and 10 being the highest price, where are you at? And trying to understand that there's a trade-off between time and money. So we can give you cash today, but that's going to be less than what you listed for. And hey, we're a business, we're not a charity. I'm not asking you to give the property away, but we have to we have to buy it at a price that makes sense for us from an investment standpoint, and that
Yeah.
doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Makes
we,
sense. Yeah.
we can also monetize other leads that the seller. I mean, like we can work deals maybe that a seller doesn't have the experience with. Like I've bought properties that have been landlocked. I've bought properties with title issues. I've bought undivided interests. I I've become like an expert at how to resolve these things. So I've got more resources than a seller may be able to do themselves. Like there's more ways to fix things from our shoes.
What would you do for that property that was landlocked?
So I bought a property in Arkansas last year that didn't have a legal description and it didn't have access. So we had to survey the property, but the surveyor couldn't work out the boundary because there was no legal description. So we contacted the neighbors, we got their neighboring surveys, and we linked them all together to kind of generate a new survey with the surrounding surveys. And then I contacted the forestry company and I said, hey, can we buy an easement? And they were shrugging me off and they're saying, look, we're not going to give you an easement, blah, 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 or just like not replying to my emails in a timely manner. So in Arkansas, you have a right for access. You can get an easement by necessity. And I knew this. So I hired an attorney. He wrote them a letter. And with the attorney's letterhead, he got a response to our request, and then we bought the front little parcel that we needed to be able to access the property, and I sold it, and we made like $19,000
Nice.
on that deal.
Yeah, that's great. Great way to add value.
Or I've got one that I just agreed yesterday. I'm buying 3 lots, and the property's got a road going to it, but the family that had the property deeded the road to the developer to develop the subdivision, and there was some mess up with the paperwork. So there's no easement, but there's a driveway going to the property, but there's no easement. So I'm buying what's like 120, 100, $150,000 property. I'm buying for $7,000 plus I'm going to pay whatever it costs to fix the access. But I'm fairly confident that it's a very low risk to do that.
Hmm.
So I do a lot of direct mail. That is my marketing strategy as well. And it's been that way from the day I started. That's pretty much been the only thing I do is direct mail. I go and I drive for dollars. Like I'm driving around town, identifying distressed properties. That is what we do every month, and we continue to add leads. How do you find leads that you send direct mail to?
So the data side to land is a little bit different than houses. So like houses, you're looking for motivational factors, and we do see that with land. But if I was just going after motivation, I think I'd be leaving a lot of deals on the table. So I have a kind of a more reductive approach. I take all the property universe in that area, get all the records, and then work out, well, what do I not want to buy? I don't want to buy properties that have recently had a market sale in the past 5 years. And then I generally have like a buy box of like 4 acres to 150 acres. And then I'll know in that area whether wetlands are good or wetlands are a problem. For example, if a property is 20 acres and it's got wetlands on it, it's good hunting, but you can't build on that property. So if it's 3 acres, it's not going to be a good building site if it's got wetlands. So we customize our data set to suit whatever area we're doing. Basically, we get every property and we try and remove what do we not want, and then we mail that. Like most of the people that sell to us are current on their taxes, and it's just a thing that they're getting on with their years, and they just don't want the property anymore. They moved, and they live an hour away from the property, or they could do with the money. It's not generally a situation where people have some impending foreclosure or some problem that they need to resolve right away. Land sellers are not that motivated from that perspective.
Yeah. How much mail do you send out each month?
So like we're sending out like 15 to kind of 18, like I think 3,500 pieces a week, which I think is like
Wow.
16, 17,000 pieces a month.
Wow. And how many deals does that generate?
So we've been getting about one deal for every 5,000 letters, and I think it's going to be a bit lower this year, because we've just redone our data set to reduce down the list even further to remove more stuff that doesn't work, as well as we're doing some other like kind of campaigns, like we're sending out postcards and different campaigns to people that are already in our database. So like people that are already in our sales pipeline, we're sending them direct mail too. And I think that's going to result in a like their kind of rehash or re-engagement campaigns, and I think they're like a higher return kind of campaign. Like I sent out 800 postcards in December. We got one deal from it because these were all sellers that I had appointments with that were just on the fence of selling, that I'd given an offer and they didn't accept. And then when you call them again, there's a high chance of them converting. So we're doing some tweaks, but that's what we're doing.
Nice.
Got it. Hey, I have a few people that reach out to me on Instagram and they want to know about flipping paper, wholesaling, flipping land internationally from Europe, typically.
Oh, yeah.
What did you have to do in order to get that business entity, or any other things that you would recommend somebody take if they wanted to get into it internationally?
So I would just say, first of all, that I got like tax advice and like legal advice in doing it. And like different situations are different. Like if you're a US citizen living abroad, you're not under the same regulations that there's a withholding tax on sales called FIRPTA, the Foreign Interest and Real Property Tax Act, which is like a 15% withholding on sales from like a non-US seller. So if you're like, I don't know, if you're an Italian doing deals in the US, you might have to pay that tax, or you're an Irish person paying that tax. If you're an Irish person, you have to pay that tax. But if you're a US citizen, you don't. So there are kind of some like uniqueness to it. But
Do you pay
what I
that
did
tax?
was, pardon?
Do you pay that tax?
Well, I've now set up a corporation that is a US domestic entity. So it's not an LLC, it's a corporation that's a US taxpayer in its own right. And
Yep.
then that makes it a US resident seller. And there are then other requirements to like keep that entity active and like working, but it avoids that additional withholding on every sale.
Got it. So you could have done an LLC, but that was typically viewed as a pass through to the owner. So in order to have it
Yes.
its own entity, you made it a corporation, a C corporation.
Yes, yeah. You could also have like a registered U.S. partnership or partnership as well that wouldn't have FERPT on it too. But
Are
I
you the sole owner of your business, or do you have a U.S.
yes,
partner?
yeah, I'm the sole owner.
Okay, got it.
There's a few different ways of doing it, and then getting a bank account is really hard as well. I like cold called like a bunch of banks, and I figured out how to do it, but there was only like one bank that accepted me, and they're not accepting non-residents anymore either. So that was a bunch of like red tape. But what I did when I was getting started was I did some deals just in my own name. I got like an ITIN number, which is like basically a social security number for like non-residents that you register with the IRS. I did some deals myself. I FedExed like cashier checks from here to the States. So it was kind of expensive and not that efficient at all, but it got me through my first few deals, and then I got some money then to pay accountants and people to help.
Oh, that's awesome. Why, of all the businesses, did you pick flipping land in the United States?
So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I got interested in all that, and I was listening to like Rich Dad Radio and then I came across apartment buildings, and I was listening to a few podcasts on, like, buying apartment buildings. I was like, well, that's not going to work if I'm like 17 in Ireland. I'm not going to buy an apartment building 5,000 miles away. But I then came across land on YouTube, and I saw people were buying land all over the country. You could be like 3 states over, and I'm like, well, if you're 3 states over, you're not seeing the property anyway. Like, it's not as much of a stretch. So that's
Yeah.
that's how I figured it out.
Why not do it in Ireland?
So there isn't publicly available data like what you got in the States. It's amazing. I can look up who owns properties and skip trace them and market to them, and you're not able to do that here. So I guess I could have become a realtor here, but the market is a lot smaller and slower, and it, like, all the courses and all the information available online, it just made sense to try America.
Awesome. Well, it's inspirational for me because it feels so difficult to do any type of new business, but you've overcome all these obstacles that people here in the US, right in their own backyard, get tripped up on. It's very inspirational, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
That is awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I've never been to any of the properties. I don't sign deeds anymore. Like, it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. What's the big goal with it for you? Where do you want to take it?
I think I'd like to at some point have another business. Like, I'm focusing all my energy into this business, but I'm interested in, having businesses and investments, and that's, so I want to build out like a management team, that we can increase our deal size, and have a professional team working under my kind of direction, and probably do like 100 deals a year.
What type of lifestyle would that allow you to have? Any specifics that you're wanting to accomplish?
Um, well, I've got a pretty good life right now. With what I've got right now, but I think I'd like to do some traveling. I'd love to see some of Asia, and I'll probably go and see around America as well. So I'd like to be able to take like a month or two off each year. The business isn't at really the point in which I can take more than a few. Like, I'm in the acquisition seat, so whilst I can take time off right now, it costs the business opportunity cost of me not doing that work. So I want to, I want to have the business work somewhat independently of me,
Mhm.
to be able to disconnect my input of labor to the business results.
Right. You want to expand so it can run without you, so you can travel and enjoy the business as it serves you, instead of you always serving the business.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Well, man, thank you. We're going to send a DealMachine hat to Ireland. I have never done that before, but we'll send you just a token of thanks. Really appreciate you describing exactly how you got into it internationally as well. Not just because it's inspiring, because it's extra stuff to jump through, but people have been asking me, and I just don't know. I'm like, I have no idea. Now I can point them to this episode.
That's right.
Well, cool. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day,
Are
and
we
we'll
uh,
be talking.
are we done with the recording now, or does it get chopped? How does all this go?
Yeah, I was going to go click stop and then go get a coffee and send you a DealMachine hat. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, not necessarily. It's like, I just think, if you want it, you can get it. It's just gonna, there's no reason why you can't do a deal, from anywhere in the world. Like there's nothing stopping you.
For sure.
Right.
Ryan, did you have one question?
No, I'm inspired by this because I've always been intimidated by remote wholesaling, and I'm intimidated by remote wholesaling from like where I'm located to an hour away. Like, there's markets like I stick to my market, but really, if I want to see the growth that I envision for my business, I got to get out of that like nervousness of doing it from a different location. And so hearing that is probably just as important for me as it is anybody that's listening to this. Is like, you can do a deal from anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. You can, remote wholesaling can happen. If you
Right.
can do it from Ireland, I can do it from here 2 hours away, no problem.
Right. Super powerful.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.